So here's something wild that just dropped. Sir Ian McKellen, who's coming back as Magneto in Avengers Doomsday, might have accidentally let slip one of the most insane moments from the upcoming film. During an interview on the Jake's Takes podcast, he was reminiscing about his favorite Magneto scenes from the old Fox X-Men movies when he casually mentioned something absolutely bonkers about his latest Marvel shoot. The man literally said he destroyed New Jersey. Then he caught himself and added that maybe he shouldn't have revealed that detail. Too late though, the cat's already out of the bag. Now before we dive deeper into what this could mean, we need to talk about how these veteran actors handle MCU press tours differently than the younger generation. Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen are absolute legends who've been doing this for decades. They're professionals through and through, but they're also not going to be as paranoid about every single word that comes out of their mouths compared to someone who just joined the franchise. When you've got the kind of career longevity these guys have, you're just more relaxed in interviews. And honestly, that's when the really interesting stuff tends to slip out. The more interviews they do for other projects, the higher the chance something juicy gets revealed about their Marvel work. It's basically inevitable at this point. What McKellen said during this interview is genuinely fascinating because he was drawing a direct comparison between his old work and what he just filmed for Doomsday. He started by talking about how he never realized Magneto was such a beloved character. He always thought of him as the villain, but fans actually connected with his perspective and attitude. Then he got into discussing how much fun it was working alongside all these younger actors who've built massive careers playing these superhero roles across multiple films. He mentioned how both he and Patrick Stewart came in as the old guard, and everyone treated them with respect, making sure they had comfortable chairs and everything. Classic old-school Hollywood treatment for the veterans. But here's where it gets really good. McKellen started describing his favorite moments as Magneto over the years. He talked about the Golden Gate Bridge sequence, where his character detached the entire bridge from its moorings and sent it floating through the air toward Alcatraz. They actually built a practical section of that bridge outdoors with massive wind machines, and he was standing on it doing his thing with his hands raised while the director shouted instructions over a loudspeaker. First, it was more intensity, then eventually less. He also remembered a scene from the very first X-Men where the camera position behind him captured his hands rising up, and right in front of him, 2 police cars were literally lifted by cranes. When he dropped his hands on cue, the cars dropped too. Real practical effects, not CGI trickery. McKellen pointed out that nowadays things are probably easier with modern technology, and then boom, he drops the bomb. He said he destroyed New Jersey the other day, immediately realized he probably shouldn't have said that, but damage done. Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios aren't going to come after Ian McKellen for this slip. The guy's a treasure, and frankly, this kind of organic hype is probably good for the film anyway. What's interesting is he gave absolutely zero context beyond that one statement. We don't know who else was in the scene, what led to New Jersey getting obliterated, or what the consequences were, but the sheer scale of what he's describing is absolutely massive. Industry insiders have already been saying Avengers Doomsday is packed wall to wall with action, that it shoots you out like a cannon from the opening and never lets up. This New Jersey revelation seems to back up everything we've been hearing about the scope and intensity of the battles in this movie. Let me clarify something important here because I don't want this to get misunderstood. When I talk about previous Avengers battles being localized, I'm specifically referring to where the physical action takes place, not the stakes involved. The first Avengers film had the Chitauri invasion happening across several city blocks in New York. The final battle against Thanos in Endgame went down at the Avengers compound in upstate New York. Obviously, the fate of half the universe was on the line during Infinity War and Endgame, so the stakes were cosmic level, but the actual fighting happened in concentrated areas. When you start hearing about Magneto wiping out an entire state, that's a completely different level of destruction. It reminds me of Worldbreaker Hulk returning to Earth and literally fracturing the entire eastern seaboard. This suggests the action sequences in Doomsday might be geographically massive in a way we haven't really seen from Marvel before. Multiple locations getting devastated simultaneously, heroes and villains clashing across vast territories instead of contained battlegrounds. There's been some chatter recently about Patrick Stewart potentially being done with movies altogether after Doomsday, not just Marvel films, but everything. Same speculation around Ian McKellen. And when you look at that ominous footage from the preview showing the X-Men in what looks like a post-apocalyptic scenario, it definitely feels like we might lose some major characters. Professor X and Magneto could both be on the chopping block here. This might be their epic final ride. On the other hand, Marvel typically wants as many heroes and villains as possible for their big ensemble finales. If If you kill off Charles and Eric in Doomsday, they won't be around for Secret Wars. But think about how Infinity War and Endgame handled their rosters. They really focused on a core group of heroes across both films. The snap worked brilliantly as a narrative device to temporarily remove secondary characters and bring everything back to the original 6 Avengers. Marvel might be planning something similar with Doomsday and Secret Wars, bringing back these Fox X-Men characters, but not having all of them survive the journey. Here's my theory on how this could play out. The multiverse is getting remade and soft rebooted after Secret Wars wraps up. Anyone who's read the comics knows that these reality reshaping events usually bring dead heroes back in some form. But for Magneto and Professor X specifically, if they die during Doomsday or even in Secret Wars, that creates a natural endpoint for these versions of the characters. Then Marvel can recast for their X-Men reboot with younger actors. We've already heard rumors that some of the new cast members for the rebooted X-Men might show up in Secret Wars. If that's true, it makes the survival odds for the Fox-era mutants even worse. Some, or maybe all of them, might not make it through the incursions that destroy their Earth, and that's another thing to consider. When you put Magneto destroying New Jersey in the context of entire Earths colliding and wiping each other out during incursions, suddenly it doesn't seem quite as apocalyptic. We might actually witness these reality-collapsing events happen on screen in Doomsday, something the MCU has only hinted at throughout the entire multiverse saga. If we're really getting visual confirmation of 2 Earths smashing into each other, with one completely obliterating the other, that makes a single state getting destroyed seem almost small scale by comparison. There's also been some interesting speculation about which realities might collide first. One rumor suggests the Fox X-Men universe could crash into the Raimi Spider-Man universe, meaning Tobey Maguire's world potentially facing off against the mutants. That would be absolutely insane to see play out in live action. The first act of Doomsday, allegedly the first 30 minutes or so, is supposed to be non-stop action. If that's accurate and Magneto really does play this massive MVP role that insiders keep mentioning, we could be in for something unprecedented. That teaser footage showing Charles Xavier and Magneto sitting together in what looks like a devastated wasteland, with the X-Mansion completely destroyed around them, really drives home how dire things get. The expression on Cyclops' face in that footage, this look of utter despair and hopelessness, is something we've never seen from that character before across all the Fox films. If Magneto actually reaches a breaking point and just unleashes that level of destruction on New Jersey, whether it's intentional or accidental, it's going to be something to witness. Marvel might be setting up a scenario where the heroes are pushed so far beyond their limits that devastating collateral damage becomes unavoidable. Or maybe Magneto's fighting against an incursion event and desperately trying to prevent something even worse, but the cost is still catastrophic. The possibilities are endless without more context. Now here's where things get really interesting for the long-term future of the MCU. Insiders are saying that after the multiverse saga concludes and Doom is defeated, Marvel is planning to shift their focus entirely to a mutant-centric saga. The MCU would essentially start to resemble what the Fox universe was, with mutants taking center stage. This doesn't mean they're getting rid of all the existing characters. Core Avengers will obviously stick around, but mutants would become the primary driving force of the narrative going forward. Characters like Wolverine, Cyclops, even Gambit are being positioned as major players. One of the films Marvel apparently wants to make is a Magneto solo movie. Not necessarily a full origin story, but something that really dives deep into his character. The actor situation is unclear, could be a recast, or maybe they find a way to keep McKellen involved in some capacity, though that seems unlikely given his age and the physical demands of these productions. The big bad for this entire mutant saga is rumored to be Mr. Sinister, with either Javier Bardem or John Hamm being eyed for the role. Bardem especially would be a phenomenal choice for Sinister. He's got the range to play both the sinister and the charismatic sides of that character. But all of this is still pretty far off and heavily in the rumor territory. We need to get through Doomsday first and see how they handle the transition from the multiverse saga into whatever comes next. The Russo brothers have dropped hints about pulling elements from the Avengers vs. X-Men comic storyline for these films. Not a direct adaptation, but using certain ideas and conflicts from that arc as inspiration. Everything we're seeing and hearing suggests Doomsday is going to kick off with massive action right from the opening moments and maintain that intensity throughout. Whether the Fox universe colliding with the Raimi universe actually happens or not, we're definitely getting our first real look at what an incursion event looks like in live action. That alone makes this film essential viewing. What's got me most excited is the potential for real consequences and stakes. The MCU has sometimes struggled with making audiences feel like major characters are actually in danger, but if veteran actors like McKellen and Stewart are potentially bowing out, if entire universes are getting destroyed on screen, if states are being wiped off the map, that creates genuine tension. You can't fake that kind of weight, and honestly, these characters deserve epic send-offs if this is indeed the end of the road for some of them. Magneto and Professor X have been fan favorites for over 2 decades across multiple film franchises, going out in a blaze of glory fighting against impossible odds alongside a massive ensemble of heroes from across the multiverse. That's a pretty incredible way to close that chapter. The fact that McKellen seemed almost proud when he mentioned destroying New Jersey, like it was this cool practical effect moment for him similar to the bridge scene or the police cars, suggests it's going to be a visually spectacular sequence. Modern effects technology combined with practical elements and a legendary actor fully committed to the moment could produce something truly memorable. I'm imagining debris floating through the air, buildings crumbling, maybe even the magnetic fields becoming visible as reality itself starts to fracture. The scale of destruction required to take out an entire state would be absolutely cinematic. One thing's for sure, Marvel isn't holding back with Doomsday. Everything we're hearing points to them going all out, throwing everything at the wall, giving fans the kind of massive crossover spectacle they've been dreaming about since the Fox merger happened. Whether all these rumors pan out exactly as described, we'll find out soon enough. But even if half of this stuff is accurate, we're in for one hell of a ride. Just remember to show up early to the theater and don't be late. Because if that first act really is 30 minutes of non-stop action starting with incursions and Magneto leveling cities, you definitely don't want to miss a single second of it.